right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move on to our next lesson in Module 4. This is going to be 4-31. Again, I know I keep saying it, but man, this module has a lot of lessons in it. We are nearing the end, though, as I'm sure you can tell by your Learn book. We're just about done with Module 4. There we go. For this particular lesson, we're going to talk some more about dividing a decimal by a decimal. Now, we've already talked about how to make a decimal divided by decimal problem into a fraction, multiply by 10. That works. We're actually going to kind of apply that here. I'll show you what we're doing. But there's an easier way using the standard algorithm. Let me show you. 10, 20, 30, plus 1. It's going to be weird going back to the smaller Roman numerals, I tell you. Okay, we don't have a lot of time or space for vocabulary, so I'm going to trust that you remember about divisors and dividends, because we will be talking about those. If you need to check back, you can always look online or in your notes, because, like I said, we're getting right to it. Step 1. Step 1. You're going to move the decimal point. Move the decimal point in the divisor. In the divisor. In the divisor. So, like I said, hopefully you remember what that is. We'll talk about it. Move the decimal point in the divisor to the right until you have a whole number. You're going to move this decimal point to the right until you have a whole number. And it must be a whole number. You cannot have 1.3 or 2.002 or nope, it's got to be a whole number. So let me show you what that's going to look like. If I give you 4 and 96 hundredths divided by 8 tenths. Now this, your first number, is your dividend. Your second number is your divisor. So that is going to be our key. We're going to take the divisor. That's 0.88 tenths. And we are going to hop the decimal point over until we get a whole number. Now in this case, we only need to move it one jump. I'll go ahead and erase that first decimal because it's not there anymore. We jumped it. All right. This will be equal now to 8. The part where this connects to what we did before, what's actually mathematically happening here. Think. You are multiplying that original decimal, 8 tenths, times 10. That's why the decimal point is moving. Again, really, it's the 8 that's shifting into the ones column, but I know it's kind of easier on the paper for most of us just to think of the decimal jumping. All right, so think 8 tenths times 10 is 8. Now, if it had been 0.08, I would have had to go 2 jumps. If it had been 0.008, I would have gone 3. You go as many jumps as you need to make it a whole number. Jump until you have a whole number. Sorry, it's getting a little fuzzy up there in the corner. All right, let's move on to step 2. Now that we have done this, step 2. Whoops. Step 2, there we go. You are going to move the decimal point, move the decimal point, move the decimal point in the dividend. In the dividend. So this time we're looking at the dividend. We're looking at the other part of the division expression. Move the decimal point in the dividend the same. Now be careful. Please, 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 please. You've got to move at the exact same number of spots. This is not about making a whole number anymore. You are moving the decimal point in the dividend the same number of places, to the right. The same number of places to the right. Again, you're not trying to make a whole number. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. This is one of those times. You are just moving it over the same number of jumps. So going back to the original problem, 4 and 96/100ths, we talked about this is our dividend. This is what we're breaking up into parts. We are going to be dividing it by, now, we turned it into 8 using our magical powers of multiplication. So that's what I'll write here for the divisor. Dividend divided by 8. Dividend, we're going to do a little bit of scooting. We're going to do a little bit of decimal point maneuvering. So 4.96. This needs to move over one jump. Just one jump. The reason for that is because that's how many jumps we did up here. One jump here, one jump there. Now I'm going to scoot the 9 over a little bit more so we've got some more space. I want to make sure that that's really clear because now we have 49 6/10. I'll write it over here, 49 6/10, to make it even clearer. Just like before, you want to think 4 and 96/100ths times 10 equals 49 6/10. Can you see how we multiply top and bottom by the same thing? Dividend and divisor by the same thing. This is why nothing is really truly changing. Think back to lesson 30 when we were multiplying by forms of 1. 10 over 10 is 1. 4.96 over 0.8, that's division. It's a fraction, but it's division. All of these things are very tightly connected. All right. Now actually, sorry, there is one other thing I'd like to put in here before. There is one quick tip I want to put in here, one quick reminder, and I mentioned this earlier. The dividend may or may not, like I said, I mentioned this earlier, it may or may not be a whole number when you're done. It's okay. It might be a whole number, it might not be a whole number. The dividend, it's okay. We can leave that as a decimal if we need to. But the divisor has got to be a whole number. So the dividend may or may not be a whole number when you're done. When you're done. That's okay. All right, let's slide down the page a little bit. We'll finally get to step 3. Step 3, rewrite the problem using the standard algorithm. I just enjoy saying that. Rewrite the problem using the standard algorithm. Basically, you're going to rewrite it vertically. Rewrite the problem using the standard algorithm and solve. Okay. So we adjusted our problem a little bit. It became 49 6/10 divided by the whole number 8. Remember, this was not the original, but we adjusted it by multiplying top and bottom by 10. Let's go ahead and write this, use the standard algorithm and solve it. 49 and 6/10. This is our dividend. This is what we're breaking up. Divide that, whoops, not by 6, goodness. Divide that by 8. There we go. Now before we start, I always recommend you carry that decimal point straight up immediately. We don't want to forget that it goes there. 8 will go into 4 no times. 8 will go into 49 about 6 times, because when I think about my multiplication facts, 6 times 8 is 48. 49 minus 48 is 1. Now, that is less than 8, but I've still got some more to deal with, so I'm going to bring down the 6. 8 will go into 16 twice. 2 times 8 is 16. Subtract that out, and we're all set. Now, for step 4, I'm going to leave that on there because we can see we have an answer, but we did a lot of adjusting. We multiplied things by 10, and then we did some division, and blah, blah, blah. So, the smart thing to do for step 4 would be to check your answer. Then record it. Now I'm going to kind of put that up here just because this is where the space is. We're almost down at the end of the page. I am going to take the quotient, 6 2/10, and I am going to multiply it. Now, be careful. Our original problem was 4 and 96/100 divided by 8/10. So I'm going to multiply my quotient by 8/10, not 8. I'm multiplying it by the original divisor. And I'm going to write that down. Original divisor. 8 times 2 is 16, carry the 1. 8 times 6 is 48, plus 1 is 49. Now, 1, 2 decimal places, 1, 2 decimal places down below. We start at the far right, we bounce over to the left. Now, is this our original dividend? 4 and 96/100. Why, yes it is. So now that we've checked, we know that our final answer right up here is correct. 6 2/10. This is really pulling together quite a few things that we've done this year and some things you've done in the past. So if it's not making sense right away, know that we're going to look over it. As always, bring your questions to class, and I will see you then. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.